Hello, and welcome to A Dominican Way. I'm Sister Vivian Jennings, a Dominican Sister of Caldwell, and our guests today are Father Bob Stagg, pastor of the Church of the Presentation in Upper Saddle River, New Jersey, and Wally Kennedy, who is the chairman of the Parish Council there. And they will be speaking to us about the efforts of their parish to promote environmental awareness and action in behalf of the environment, a very important issue for all of us today.
Hello, my name is Father Bob Stagg. I am currently the pastor at Church of the Presentation in Upper Saddle River, New Jersey. I've been the pastor there for 7 years. A long time ago, I was down in the Caldwell area at Caldwell College for 13 years. And joining me today is Wally Kennedy. Wally?
Hi, I'm Wally Kennedy, and I'm a parishioner at Church of the Presentation. And my wife and I have been parishioners there for about 25 years now. And for the last couple of years, I've been the chairperson of our pastoral council. I've been on the council for probably 5 or 6 years at this point.
We're here today to talk a little bit about an award that the parish just won, was called Green Faith Certification, and we became a Green Faith Sanctuary. This is a interfaith ecumenical movement. It's been going for quite a while, largely Protestant churches and Jewish temples. A little while ago, we started a 2-year certification process. It was sparked by a few factors, of which we can talk about. Wally was one of our key persons, one from the Pastoral Council and 2 from our Green Faith and St. Francis Ministry group to start that. Do you want to?
The St. Francis Ministry, which has existed for a few years in our parish, always had the idea of doing something of an environmental nature. And one of the people on the ministry was able to learn about Green Faith. And we petitioned Green Faith and were able to get accepted into their certification program. And what was interesting, we didn't realize this at the time, but we were the first Catholic community to be accepted into the program. So we started a little over 2 years ago now a process of certification that was very, very, very vigorous. And what we found out as we were going through this, we also found out that we're a very large community in comparison to most of the denominations and churches that they have. But they had a very, very structured program that we needed to follow. It gave us a lot of opportunities, and we were asked to do things in 3 broad areas, one called spirit, one called stewardship, and the third one called environmental justice. And I think most of the people on our certification committee, we formed a green team within the parish to try to make sure that we were keeping up with the requirements that Green Faith had, but also to move the initiative forward and also to give it a great deal of emphasis so that the community would be well aware of what we were doing. I think one of our long-term goals and visions is we use the term DNA, and we said we want green to become part of the DNA of our community. I mean, I think we're a community that's really known for great liturgy, great music, great retreat programs, being a community for wounded people, but we want to try to get that type of DNA into the mindset in terms of being green, and we're moving toward that.
When this process had begun several years ago, we had taken advantage of a federal program for solar panels, where at the beginning of the Obama administration there was a 1-year window where if you put in solar that year, 30% of the cost of putting the solar in came back to your institution. So we took advantage of that, putting 400 solar panels on our roof. And what it does is it supplies 50% of our electricity today. And on a formula of SRECs, what they call solar reserve energy cells, the utility companies need to have renewable energy, either wind or solar. And if they don't have enough, they can buy it from people that are creating wind or solar like us. And they usually buy it back for about 90% of what the penalty would be. That program is still in effect. and New Jersey's one of the very strong states with solar. We had done this. We had redone our bathrooms over with gravity heat. We had put in the machines that dry your hands rather than the paper towels. We had gone to lights that had turn off when you leave an office or a building, and so we had instituted any number of these. And even prior to this, we had a very strong Justice and Peace Committee, and it gave rise to a St. Francis Committee that looked at the environment. So it was a very natural fit to us to look at green faith certification.
Those solar panels, what's really neat about them, to go back to the thought about DNA, the solar panels are obviously quite visible, and the parishioners ask questions, what are these, and to connect them to our desire to be green and to our certification process was very, very easy. I mean, they're not only cost efficient, but they're a great marketing tool in a sense to getting the community to be aware of what we're doing. And those activities fell under what Green Faith calls stewardship requirements. And from my standpoint, we did a lot of that early on. I mean, I think we may have had our certification requirements within the first 6 months in that area of a 2-year process. So we were very, very, very active in there and did a very, very good job. There was also a series of requirements in spirit, which has a lot to do with worship. And we would have liturgies that had a green flavor or theme to them. We also did other things, for a number of years we had a green fair, so that tied into the spirit aspect of certification. And we also had for a number of years a fair trade sale. We just had one within the last 2 weeks, I believe.
Right.
And all of those were elements that helped us in the spirit end of the certification process. Now, the third part, environmental justice, was basically something that we really didn't have a lot of grassroots in, like stewardship or spirit. And we needed to assemble a group of people to do things that Green Faith was requiring. And Green Faith wanted us to establish relationships with international leaders and local leaders in environmental justice. And they also wanted us to conduct various educational activities for the community. And so over a 2-year period, we did things that were related to international issues and some related to local issues. And on the international front, we established some contacts with, first of all, the Catholic Coalition for Climate Change. The director of that is a gentleman named Dan Misla. He came to the presentation, and he delivered a talk on climate change. And we may have had 60 or 70 people in attendance, which we thought was an excellent turnout. So he was creating awareness in the community. At that talk, we also asked the people in attendance to sign something called the St. Francis Pledge. And the St. Francis Pledge is a form of advocacy. It's a pretty straightforward thing. Some of its elements include, we will pray that people become aware of climate change. And another element, very simply, we'll become aware of it. We'll help educate ourselves about climate change. And we initially had maybe 30 to 40 people sign it. I think we've probably close to come to doubling that number now. And what the St. Francis Pledge, the Catholic Coalition for Climate Change, uses that in any type of lobbying or advocacy that they're doing with the federal government. So we thought it was a very, very good thing that we did.
In broad strokes, one of our staff members, Monsignor Ed Cuba, wrote a big booklet called "Why We Should Care About Planet Earth, Our Home," and it really is it's about presentation in Upper Saddle River, New Jersey, but it's a great blueprint for any parish or any quite frankly any faith institute. But he talks in it. Why is care for the earth a Christian responsibility? The sacredness of the good earth that we've been given, that is part of our stewardship, is handing this sacred earth to the next generation, just like we pass on our faith. He talks about why is it important for presentation? Our parish to be a green parish. How we're also interconnected with one another. One tour around a supermarket, where you look at, what the farmers have done, what the fishers have done, what the harvesters have done, the truck drivers that bring it there, the people that stock the shelves, the advertisers, the people that package products, the consumer. We're also interdependent upon the earth and upon each other, that it's in it's in our best interest, and certainly our Christian interest, and it aligns with our mission as a parish, that our values should be to protect the good earth. It's God's creation. So this is a powerful tool. If anybody needs this, they could contact us, and we can certainly get them a copy of Father Ed's book.
One of the wonderful things about that book, when Father Ed wrote it, there are questions at the end of each chapter, reflection-type questions. And we have a very active network of small Christian communities within presentation. That's been a ministry that's grown over a period of probably 30 or 40 years. And that booklet is designed to be a tool that can be used by these communities.
Absolutely.
And so many of our small Christian communities have used that 8 or 9 chapter booklet to do a series of meetings of their own community. And it's been a great tool. If we're trying to create awareness and build DNA about being green, that booklet was of great help to us. And I'll just go back to the talk about climate change that was done by Dan Misla. We had a second talk, and then most recently we followed up with a meeting of a film showing of a film called Chasing Ice, which was, I believe, produced by National Geographic. I believe it's won awards, but was a very, very compelling film about climate change. But what we did, we expanded our reach. This was, we aligned ourselves with the community of Upper Saddle River. We aligned ourselves with the Northern Highlands United Methodist Church. And so we had people at this film showing from presentation, but also from other parts of the community. And again, it was reinforcing the message of climate change that we've been delivering now for a 2-year period. And that booklet will now get spread into other religious communities of different denominations as a result of this get-together that we had that had both our parishioners and other people from the community.
To be a little more specific too about worship opportunities, one of the high-end efforts in this 2-year process, we built a labyrinth. Probably cost about $70,000 all in, but it's a very ecumenical worship aid that people walk on the exterior of our building, and they can walk it. There's lights on it all night, so they can walk at any time. They don't even have to come into our building, but it was part of the stewardship of the earth. We also have a bicycle station to the cross on Good Friday where parishioners go from place to place, and a seasonal liturgy, for the first fruits, for the winter, for the springtime, for the summer. We've kicked around the idea of a garden. We don't have a garden yet. We have a deer problem in our area, and that's a major issue. We do have 4 beehives, which populate the area, and we grow our own honey on our property. So it's been kind of as you walk around, there are a few visuals besides the solar panels, the labyrinth, the honeybees on the property that people can see that it's being well taken of. The janitors have been instructed, and the contractors that come on our property have been instructed in chemicals and obviously in recycling, which is probably the first thing we all do, easiest thing to do. Right?
And what we've tried to communicate is that these issues are not, I believe that most of our community, as probably most of the people in the United States, believe environmental issues to be political. And we've tried to emphasize the moral nature of them, our responsibility to be stewards of God's community. And in that regard, we've also tried to do some things locally in terms of environmental justice. And we established a relationship in the Ironbound section of Newark with the Ironbound Community Corporation. A director there named Anna Baptista has been very, very, very helpful to us. And I believe most of the people in northern Bergen County think of the Ironbound as a great place for Portuguese and Spanish restaurants. The Jersey Performing Arts Center is there, but they don't know the other area of the Ironbound too well. And with the help of the Ironbound Community Corporation, we conducted what Ironbound calls a toxic tour of their area. And one spring day, somewhere between 30 and 40 people from presentation went to the Ironbound. And we went on this toxic tour. And we learned a lot about the environmental problems that the Ironbound has. As an example, there's a tremendous level of pollutants in their air. And the primary reasons that children miss school, the primary reason is asthmatic conditions. Emergency room visits to their hospitals are asthmatic related disproportionately. The other thing that we learned, 2/3 of the Agent Orange used in the Vietnam War was produced in the Ironbound. No. So there's all sorts of toxicity in their land. And on this tour, all this type of these facts that were really eye-opening and extremely moving to our community. So the tour was a great educational vehicle. We also had an opportunity on that tour to meet with a Newark councilman. And so we were able to work with him and express to him, the concerns for environmental issues. And Ironbound has done such wonderful things. We've been able to help them a little bit. When you think about a community in the United States, you think that access to fresh produce might be very easy. In the Ironbound, there aren't any supermarkets. All the supermarkets that were there have pulled out. And the only thing that remains are a series of small mom and pop type stores. And fresh produce is not readily available. They might be available, but it might not be so fresh. So Ironbound has purchased land to try to grow their own produce. And we've helped them a little bit with that. The challenge with that, when you have land that's been toxic, the gardens have to be grown above the ground. And we've been able to give a little bit of support to the community for that. All of this coming out of that tour as follow-up. We've also been involved in helping them beautify their area a little bit. We've had people go down and help them with planting flowers. We've had, on a number of occasions, group go down and help them with just basic neighborhood cleanup that's required. And we've also participated in an Earth Day with them to help, again, educate people in their community. So we've done things that have expanded our reach beyond northern New Jersey, but into the urban areas of Newark, and in an area where most of us, until a few years ago, didn't realize there were really, really needs.
Environmental justice is clearly, the whole purpose of environmental justice is it unfairly afflicts the poor. Mm-hmm. If we frack or if we pollute the area, if we leave toxics around, wealthy people can move. But clearly, as we see in like Tacloban right now down in the Philippines, the poor people in that area will not be able to migrate out. They're there, they're home. Poor people can't leave an area that's been poisoned or polluted. They're there. So it's very much in keeping with the mission of the church. As we look at our values and we look at who we are as Christian people, that part of our mission and our jobs to leave our world a better place and improve conditions wherever we can.
The thing about our involvement with the Ironbound, I jokingly said once, maybe the Ironbound got its name from a general who fought in some sort of war, but the Ironbound is a reason for its name. It's a community bound by iron. There's the airport, there are railroads, and there are roads. They're sort of locked in, and there's an enormous amount of truck traffic that goes through there. It's part of the reason for high levels of pollutants in their air. We have done some advocacy on behalf of that. We've also been involved in a movement. The Bayonne Bridge is being redone, and it's the Bayonne Bridge needs to be raised to accommodate new ships that will be able to go into the port. And we have done some advocacy to express a concern that this will probably bring more air pollution to the Ironbound. And we're certainly not advocating that the bridge be kept as it is, because that would destroy the port of Newark. But what we're advocating is trying for the governmental figures to take into consideration the effect on the air that it will have in the ironbound community. There's certainly an economic need for the community to have that bridge raised, but consider these other things as well. We really believe that there's a tremendous balance that needs to be found between environmental issues, political, social, and economic. And all this has come from our environmental justice during our Green Faith certification process and has gained great momentum in our community.
Certainly another area not far removed from this, and certainly in keeping with justice, is the parish has a very strong outreach to the people of Haiti. About 5 years ago, we bought 12 acres in southwest Haiti in an area by Lacaille. It's one of their major towns, and we've go down twice a year with doctors and nurses from the parish, and we run a medical clinic down there. Recently, we partnered with a parish in Texas, and one of our issues we've had is when we leave these major visits, there's very little follow-up and very little sustainability. And it was our hope with this to partner with this other place, and together we could support a full-time clinic. And so when we're down there currently this week in November, when we're speaking here, we've got 20 people down there this week, doctors and nurses from New Jersey and New York. But when we leave there, there's 7 people who are working on our payroll, a Haitian doctor, 2 nurses, and 2 lab techs, along with a security person and a janitor, who are keeping the mission going so they can continue to see patients and prescribe and follow up on the mega visits that we have. We'll go back in April, but so that's an exciting time for us. We also just signed a contract with an architect and a building firm down in Haiti to put up to renovate an old masonry building on our property that will be, in fact, a permanent mission for that. So that also is part of that environmental justice and kind of coming out of this green faith sanctuary movement for us.
Right. And what we're looking for people to participate with us in these endeavors. And I mean, when we started to involve the community of Upper Saddle River, that was a real great effort to bring more in. But we feel that these are such strong efforts that that people should feel compelled to help. And we not only encourage our parishioners all the time to join us, but we'd welcome people outside of our community to come and help us. And I mean, there's a lot in the area of justice that can be done. And I would have the vision that locally that we expand our efforts beyond working with the ironbound, with advocacy and helping them with get cleaner air, cleaner land. I would like to see us expand in other areas in our community, and that's part of the vision going forward for us. What more can we do? How do we reinforce what we've been doing in the ironbound, but how do we take it to another community where we might be able to help? And I believe our education on climate change that we've been doing, that will continue through a series of events that involve not only another film showing, but a book club meeting that will be held in 2 weeks in conjunction again with the community and with the United Methodist Church. And that we have a program set up that will carry us through next June, which will be a combination of films and book club type meetings. And again, we're encouraging anyone from any community to come join us with that. So we really feel that we're just scratching the surface on so many of these things, particularly with environmental justice, and that we're a green faith sanctuary today, but we're going to become a greater green faith sanctuary in the future. We are just scratching the surface on this endeavor. And this will become part of the DNA of the community of the Church of the Presentation.
Thanks, Wally. Just in finishing, we had a terrific clothing drive a couple of weeks ago. I bet you 1,000 people came through the church on a Saturday, and they probably had 70 or 80 volunteers. They involved 10 different centers for the poor and soup kitchens, and X amount of tonnage of clothes that came out of it, but just recycling the clothes. You know, I went to my own closet and gee, I probably had 15 jackets. I'm not going to need 15 jackets. The sweaters I have, the golf shirts I had, and just to bundle them up and get them to people that can use them and put them to good use. Great effort for the kids to see that. Easy to do in a parish or an institution, no matter what your size. We do a midnight run with the kids where they go into the city, into Manhattan, and they bring some of these things that we collect from the people, and they stop at different centers, Covenant House and other centers for the poor and homeless in the city, and they give out a lot of these clothes too. But it's an easy thing for the high school kids to see, and they can do it with mom and dad, and I think that's an important piece too, as we pass that on.
We feel that a major opportunity for the environmental justice aspect is with our youth ministries, and to get them involved. They have been involved to a slight degree with us with the Ironbound, but we want to expand that, and we think that the environment is an issue that younger folks are particularly sensitive to, and we think it's just another wonderful area for us to expand upon.
Good. Thanks, Bob. We thank you folks for being here. Wally, thanks for joining us today, and we hope we've kicked the can down the road a little bit environmentally. Thanks.